Hello people, this is SelfTuts and in this video we will learn about command completion in our AWS CLI. AWS CLI is the command line tool which is used to interact with different Amazon Web Services that are present there. So command completion is important in AWS CLI because Amazon provide us with many Amazon Web Services. There's a list of more than 20 services that are present there, and if you want to interact with it, then you need to learn the name of every services and the action that you want to perform on those services. So it becomes a very tedious task to remember the name of all those services and the action that we want to perform on those services. So AWS provides us with a tool that is called AWS CLI and a AWS completer which reduces our task in remembering those services name and those actions name by doing the command completion task. So to activate this command completion in AWS CLI, the first step is to identify the shell, means in which shell you are working. So the shell can be bash shell, the shell can be G shell or the TCS shell. The another thing is you have to locate the AWS completer, means where the AWS completer is present. So if I'll go to my Linux system in which I have already downloaded the AWS CLI, so I'll show you the version of AWS CLI which is 1.11. so it means I'm already having AWS CLI. One thing which is important to note that when I downloaded this AWS CLI using pip, then I already got some other tools which are AWS G Shell completer, AWS completer, AWS bash completer. So these tools are already present in my system, but I only need to configure the system to make the command completion work. So I'll identify my shell and then I'll locate the AWS completer. So first we should do these two things. So the first one is identifying the shell, and the shell in which I am working is bash shell. Then I'll type which AWS completer. So it says I have to use the user bin AWS completer. So now the next step to activate is if you're using the bash shell, then you need to type this command in your terminal, that is complete -c path from step 2. Path from step 2 is what? Which AWS completer return me a path, and that I have to write here. If my shell is TCS shell, then I have to use complete AWS p star and then AWS completer. In this case I don't have to write any path. And if my shell is Z shell, then I have to use the source path from step 2, and that is from here. But in this case I have to use the G shell completer. So the path is same for AWS bash completer and AWS Z shell completer, but if your shell is Z shell, but here then you have to use this completer. In our case we got a bash shell, so we need to use the AWS completer and not AWS bash completer. So I'll just first I'll show you that if I have written AWS and one of the services which I know is Lambda, then if I I'm hitting my tab multiple times, but there's no command completion, means I'm not able to see all the AWS services which are provided by the AWS CLI. Or if simply I write AWS and then I hit tab, then I'm not getting anything related to the AWS services, which means my command completion is not activated. So what I'll try to do, I'll try to write this, since my shell is bash shell, I'll try to write this command in my terminal, which is complete and then -c and the path of the shell that we got from step 2. So the step 2 which we performed is here, which is which AWS completer, and it returned me a path of this user bin AWS completer. So what I'll do, I'll just write user/bin/AWS completer, and then what I have to write, I have to write the AWS only. So this is the command which you need to write, and I can't do anything for it. So I have written the command correctly, and just I'll press enter. Now I'll try to see is my command completion working or not. So this time I'll type AWS and I'll hit enter. So see, this time it is saying you have 103 possibilities. So I'll say yes, and now hooray, you can see that all the AWS services are listed here, like ACM, API Gateway, Batch, and then if you search for CloudTrail, CloudWatch, where's my favorite service? That is IAM. IAM is a identity and access management service. And my favorite service is Lambda service, so Lambda service is also present here. So now you can see I'm hitting tab and it is saying me that I can display you 103 possibilities, so you don't have to remember the name of every service. So you can just use this command completion tool. So this time what I'll do yes, and now I'll try to select the Lambda service. So if I select Lambda service, so the Lambda service provides some actions which we can perform on it. So again I'll hit tab and it will say me these are the actions that I can perform. See, there are so many services, more than 20 to 30 services are there, and to remember every action on every service, it is very difficult. So just by using this command completion tool, you can see that on this Lambda service we can use these many actions, like you can create a new Lambda function by using the create function, and then you have to update the alias. You can use this. So you can see that the command completion is working fine in my AWS CLI. But there is one problem, that what we did is we wrote this command in our current shell, which means the setting that we have done here will be present until and unless we don't close this shell. So if you close this shell, then again the AWS CLI command completion will stop working. So in that case, we need to provide this setting in our bash rc file. So bash rc file is a hidden file which is present in our home folder, which is read by the shell every time it is started. So all the configuration that are present inside that bash rc file is loaded when the shell starts. So if you see, I can open the bash rc file which is present in my home folder, and currently these are the settings. So I'll provide my own setting of this complete -c, and the path is user/bin/AWS completer and then AWS. Since my shell was bash, so I'm using this. If your shell is Z shell, then you need to use the source path from step 2, and remember you need to use the Z shell AWS completer. So I have written this. So I need to read the file again, this bash rc file, to make the changes working. So I'll do source, means I'm again reading that file, and I'll type bash rc. So what happens this time, that complete syntax that we have written will get activated. So now it has been set, and again I can do AWS and I'll hit tab. It will say me what are the 103 possibilities. I'll say this time I'll work with API gateway, and what are the actions that I can perform on API gateway is there is 107 possibilities. So I'll say yes, and these are the different actions that I can perform. I can get an API key, I can delete a REST API, I can delete a resource. So you can see just by using the AWS command completion, it becomes very easy for you to work with AWS command line tool. So this is all for this video. If you like my channel, please subscribe to it. If you like this video, please give a thumbs up. Thank you.